on why they should license. State groups use these checks for non-criminal purposes, such as for professional licensings or employment. For a state to access the FBI record check for a non-criminal purpose, it must have the statute in place that follows the criteria laid out by the FBI. Missouri statute no longer meets these standards, and the FBI has given Missouri a grace period until August 28, 2024. If our statute is not updated by then, our state agency boards and commissions may not be able to request criminal history background checks from the FBI in the future. Currently, applicants for licensing or employment to certain agencies and appointees of boards and commissions shall submit fingerprints to the Missouri Highway Patrol for the purpose of conducting a state and federal fingerprint-based criminal history background check. Got a mouthful. The fingerprints and any required fees shall be sent to the Highway Patrol and shall be forwarded to the FBI to conduct a federal check. The Highway Patrol shall notify the agency, board, or commission of any criminal history record discovered on the individual. Senate Bill 875 would update our statute to meet all 6 of the FBI standards it uses to approve states that want to access federal background checks. Let's run through the criteria. Number 1, the authorization must exist as a result of legislation enactment or its functional equivalent. Number 2, the authorization must require fingerprinting of the applicant. Number 3, the authorization must expressly or by implication authorize use of FBI records for screening of the applicant. Number 4, the authorization must not be against public policy. Number 5, the authorization must not overly be broad in its scope and must identify a specific category of applicants or licensees. And number 6, the authorization may not authorize recipient of the criminal history by a private entity. Without new legislation that meets the FBI's criteria, Missouri will be denied access to FBI criminal history background checks for licensing and employment purposes. Imagine if our state agencies, boards, and commissions were not able to get federal background check of people before they were hired or licensed. This includes your doctors, accountants, children's public school teachers, and a long list of other people. If we want to keep our community safe and continue getting these federal background checks, we need to move forward with Senate Bill 875. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions, and I will tell you, I think there's some really good witnesses coming behind me.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions for Senator Bean? Seeing none, we'll now we'll take our first witness in favor. Please remember to leave a witness form. Did she want to call me? Did she want
Good morning.
Good morning.
You hear me okay? My name is Lieutenant Alex Vivas. I'm with the Missouri State Highway Patrol, and I serve as the Governmental Affairs Liaison for the Missouri State Highway Patrol. I'm here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 875. So as stated, Senate Bill 875 allows us to continue to do what we have been doing and access that critical criminal history information when it has to do with licensing for professional agencies and state boards. It allows that to continue to happen. The FBI has changed their criteria, and we are just updating things to make sure we are in line with what they have asked for. They have tightened things up a little bit, and they want a little bit more justification when a non-law enforcement agency requests a background check and access to nationwide criminal history information. And that is, they're not telling us that they have to do that. That is just them asking, if you are going to do it, this is the criteria and please comply with that. And that's what Senate Bill 875 is doing. It's just updating that information, that language, to being in compliance with what they're asking for. At this time, if you have any questions, I'll be...
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? I have one. What is the change in process or procedure for the Highway Patrol to access this? I mean, if we change this statute and align with what they're requiring, how does that change your job, what you're doing every day?
It doesn't change at all.
I didn't think so. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Senator Mosley has a question for you. I'm sorry.
So currently, they are not required to give fingerprints? Is that what it- Are they,
So that's an update. If
so they are right now required to give fingerprints, or are they not?
No, they're not.
Not. And the sole purpose is to find out if they have criminal background somewhere else, or
So, to give you an example, if, for instance, the Missouri Bar wants to give a license to practice in the state of Missouri, and the Missouri Bar so wishes to conduct a background check on that person, this isn't saying they have to. If they choose to, this bill is saying this is how the procedure for requesting that information. So that information would give them access to criminal history nationwide, so that way they could know, if they choose to, the Missouri Bar could know if that person had some sort of conviction in their criminal history that they would want to know about, the Missouri Bar would want to know about before they issued a license for them to practice. And that goes for a multitude of different professional organizations within the state of Missouri.
okay. So you're saying it's not going to be required because it says shall require, but it's not. You're
So
saying
it's, the fingerprints are required, yes, Senator, but it's not required, this is not requiring them to do a background check. But if they choose to do a background check, it's saying they shall submit fingerprints.
I'm gonna have to dig a little more, speak to a lawyer about this to make sure. Okay.
I can
Thanks.
definitely follow up with you, Senator, on that.
All right.
Thank you. Any other questions for this witness? Thank you. Be sure you leave your witness form. Do we have any others who would like to testify in favor of? Good morning, Wes.
Morning, Senator. Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Wes Sutton, Legislative Director, Missouri Division of Professional Registration, going on record in support, which is not something I get to do very often, but excited when I get to. As previous witnesses have stated, this is our update bill that keeps us authorized to be able to do background checks. To kind of clarify for any of our licensees who may be listening and may have a little confusion, our board still will have the decision, they'll have the autonomous decision on whether or not they do the fingerprinting and the background check. That's a decision made by them, but this gives them the authorization to do that should they choose to. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
I have a question.
Senator
Okay,
Mosley.
so you're saying that they have a choice on whether or not they do the background check.
Correct.
So how are we going to know that they're not going to discriminate and do it just for certain applicants and not for others?
So, Senator, it would be kind of it's an all or nothing decision. So this is I can only speak for our boards within Division of Professional Registration. So currently, let's take the Board of Nursing, for example. Board of Nursing does a background check on all applicants. So that's a decision that gets made. You submit your application to become a nurse with the board. That is part of your application to them. That allows us for those licensees, they're entered into what's called the wrap-back system. There's other things that may pop up with that allows us to know in real time if someone has been charged with a felony crime, something relating to the profession. That gives us our indicator that this has happened, and we can start an investigation. Because without tools like this, we are reliant on very antiquated sources. We either have to receive a complaint directly, or we have to rely on things like the news to let us know. So this is kind of a lifeline for us to be able to get the bad actors taken care of as quickly as we can. So it's a board's decision whether or not to enter into this, but there is no discrimination of one licensee versus another. It's either the entire profession is in or the entire profession is out in terms of background checks. So this allows the board to make that decision.
So it would already have to be in their requirement,
It's
laid out in their requirement. They can't say later, I want this person to be.
No, they can't require it for one individual. It is kind of the standard criteria for everyone in that profession, or it's not. And so this is their authorization to make that decision, and each board is kind of their own unique little world in how they do that. So, what the physicians versus the nurses versus the realtors versus the pharmacists, they all kind of have their own decision making. But a big reason why this bill is so large is because we have many, many different professions within the state of Missouri. I have 41 boards and commissions under me at Professional Reg, and each of them have to have their own individual authorization for this. But we're not going to say
And this is for all state boards and commissions? Or
this. I don't know if we're hitting all of them under us, but all of them that had it prior are in here, is what I know.
what do you mean had it prior?
So this is an update language for our background check statutes that the federal government told us that we had to update on. So anybody who had the old version of these statutes now has this new version.
Okay, so this is for people who already require.
This is for
Fingerprint.
boards that already had that authorization.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you,
all
sir.
very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who'd like to testify in favor of? Seeing none, do we have anyone who'd like to testify in opposition to? Seeing none, informational purposes? Seeing none, Senator Bean, do you have any closing remarks?
No, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Bye-bye. Okay, so now we're going to hear Senate Bill 1039. And Senator Roberts, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Good morning. I'm Senator Steve Roberts, State Senator from Missouri's 5th District in the city of St. Louis. I'd like to thank the chair and members of this committee for affording me the opportunity to present Senate Bill 1039, which establishes the Missouri Geospatial Advisory Council within the Office of Administration. This council is charged with assisting and advising the state in ensuring the availability, implementation, and enhancement of statewide geospatial data infrastructure common to all jurisdictions through research, planning, training, and education. Several states such as Kentucky, Tennessee, and Utah have formed these geospatial advisory councils, and I've had the opportunity to learn from each of those states' respective GIS coordinators. These councils have been crucial for the development of next-generation 911 systems, broadband mapping, transportation mapping, environmental management, among several others. This was something I filed last year, which was voted out of this committee unanimously. There was mirror language in the House sponsored by Representative Taylor, which passed 156-0 last year. And thank you for your time, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Senator Roberts? Seeing none, do we have anybody who would like to testify in favor of? Good morning.
Morning, Madam Chair, Senators. Tom Dempsey, registered lobbyist for Greater St. Louis, Inc. St. Louis, with the sizable investment that is being made with the Geospatial Agency, National Geospatial Agency, and the jobs that are coming with it, is becoming a national hub for geospatial technology. With the passages of this legislation and the council it creates, St. Louis can become a global center for geospatial excellence. This is a window of opportunity. We hope that the legislature will be able to pass it this year, and with that, we'd like to go on record in support of the legislation. And we also thank Senator Roberts for his sponsorship.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Good morning, Heidi.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Heidi Geis-Buehler-Sutherland here on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Like Tom said, this bill is a great way to cement Missouri's position as a geospatial hub and a great way to encourage more people to come and join the geospatial workforce.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Would anybody else like to testify in favor of? Good morning.
Good morning. Senator Esslinger, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Senate Bill 1039, and thank you, Senator Roberts. My name is Tony Spicci, and obviously I'm here to testify in favor of the bill. Developing legislation like this has been a career goal of mine, and I'm very honored to speak today on this bill. I hope you'll allow me a moment to tell you a little bit about myself. I worked for the state of Missouri for almost 30 years, retiring in 2021. I was the GIS coordinator for the Missouri Department of Conservation, and for a few years, the Geographic Information Officer for the state of Missouri, a job I performed in addition to the one at Conservation. I'm also a member of Boone County Fire Protection District and Missouri Task Force 1, and I'm currently the Executive Director of the GIS Certification Institute. The common theme or thread in all of these positions is my use of GIS, or Geographic Information Systems, to help produce a better outcome. If you cannot tell, I have a passion for GIS. I hope you know what GIS is, but if not, I'll give you a 30-second pitch. Pretty much everything we do today has a geospatial component to it. Whether it's driving your car, mapping out your vegetable garden, or delivering effective programs to citizens, GIS is the toolbox that allows you to look at, analyze, display, and make good decisions from data very quickly and very efficiently. And it allows you to display the data in several easy-to-understand formats, most notably the map. If you have one of these, which is an iPhone, you're participating in Google or Apple's GIS programs, either knowingly or unknowingly. Missouri was an early adopter of GIS and started mainstreaming it into the government operations in the early 1990s. A lot has happened with this newfound technology, and then Governor Mel Carnahan formed the Missouri GIS Advisory Committee in 1994 to help facilitate the use of GIS and development of geospatial data within state government. I was a member of that original committee, and I remain one today. But we were a committee on paper only, with no authority other than the governor's expectation to do good things. And we did good things, a lot of them. But the one thing we did best, and the one thing that I'm most proud of, is we coordinated very well. Missouri was recognized and respected for its coordination efforts, and we helped set the standard for state coordination in the nation. We expanded the committee to include local governments, utilities, private sector, academia, and others. And we did all of this with no budget or no formal designation from Missouri government. We were, and we continue to be, a group of volunteers that want to make our communities a better place. So if it isn't broke, why fix it? Unlike many commissions or boards, the Missouri GIS Advisory Committee is not codified in state statute. That means a governor or another government official can remove the committee or not follow its recommendations, or more importantly, its role in helping to coordinate the geospatial activities of the state. Existing on paper isn't always a good thing. Having served on the Missouri Board of Geographic Names, I understand the value of codified boards in Missouri. Having a GIS board not only ensures proper coordination, but helps eliminate waste in governments and keeps everyone, including citizens, informed. Why is this important? The federal government spends over $6 billion a year on geospatial data. Missouri also invests a sizable amount of taxpayer dollars in geospatial data. But what if you're a small community that cannot afford the data needed to make better decisions with GIS? Missouri Task Force 1 is a state asset that provides urban search and rescue services for the good citizens of Missouri, as well as the nation, and needs high-resolution imagery to help rescue citizens in the event of a disaster. We don't have a budget for that. But when I was in conservation, we did have a budget, not enough to get all of what we needed, much less the kind of data that a fire department or USAR team might need. So we went to the Missouri GIS Advisory Committee and asked everyone what their imagery needs were and what they can afford. We talked to groups like the Mid-America Regional Council and other local governments to ensure we wouldn't fly the same area twice, and we shared our resources and put together a statewide flight that gave us all what we needed or reasonably close. We've done this a couple times now, and as you know, that is because Missouri is constantly changing. Most importantly, we gave it to the citizens of Missouri free of charge, including the communities that you serve. You can see all of this imagery today on Google Earth, or you can go to the State Spatial Data Clearinghouse and download it yourself. Most importantly, I had access to the data when I was deployed to both Joplin and Jefferson City with the task force. Missouri GIS Advisory Committee member and St. Louis-based CERDEX even provided very high-resolution post-tornado imagery of Joplin just days after the event, free of charge. Coordination and sharing like this are examples of why we created the community. The bill might look like an effort to consolidate power for the advisory committee, but it's the exact opposite. The bill is designed to codify the committee and bring folks to the table. It requires state agencies to coordinate and work together, and more importantly, it provides a forum to communicate and coordinate so that all of us, not just state government, do not duplicate efforts or waste money. All of this comes with no direct cost to your constituents. Earlier I told you that Missouri was a leader in the geospatial community. We've fallen behind as other states have codified their councils, designed geographic information officers, designated GIOs, and built their programs. But it's not too late for Missouri. GIS isn't going away. Just look at the investment the federal government is making in St. Louis, along with the private sector, with the development of the NGA facility. Now is our opportunity to take the next step forward. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope you will consider moving this bill forward, and I'm glad to help any way I can.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for this witness? Thank you. Very informative. I appreciate that. Or do we have anybody else who would like to testify in favor of? Do we have anyone who would like to testify in opposition to or for informational purposes? Seeing none, Senator Roberts, do you have any closing remarks?
No, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes the hearing on 1039, and now we will move on to Senator Trent. We'll now hear Senate Bill 1052, and begin when you are ready, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Curtis Trent, representing Senate District 20. Senate Bill 1052 basically modifies and streamlines the process to receive a license from the State Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors. So I can, in brief here, to be eligible for full licensure, you have a student licensee has to submit evidence that they are in a qualified education program or have completed one. Then they have an apprenticeship where they will engage in 6 months of study under a fully licensed embalmer, and they will prepare 25 deceased bodies and also set for any applicable examinations, National Board of Examination Arts, for the purpose of reciprocity in other states if so desired. The goal here is just to streamline, modernize the process a little bit so that we are able to maintain the quantity and quality of funeral directors that we need in the state. Would be happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for this witness? I mean, for this senator, excuse me. So basically, Senator Trent, what is the difference? What's changed?
The tweaks are all fairly minor. Probably the biggest changes in some of the timelines. So, 6 months instead of 12 months for like the apprenticeship.
Right.
You're still completing the same quantity and quality of work as 25 deceased bodies under the old standard, under supervision of a licensed embalmer. That's not changed. So it just kind of creates the ability to get through this a little bit faster and a little bit more simply.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you bringing the bill forward. We've had several that have reached out because of that year-long apprenticeship, which is,
Yeah, and this went through committee last year
Sure.
and has had a fair amount of vetting, I think, on both sides of
Okay.
the rotunda. So.
Thank you so much. So now we'll hear anybody who'd like to testify in favor of. Is there anybody here who'd like to testify in opposition to? Anybody here to testify for informational purposes only? So I do believe that people are very aware of this bill, and we hope that we can get across the line this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for your time and consideration.
Thank you. So we have, that'll conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 1052, and no further business. Coming before the committee, I make a motion we adjourn. Do I have a second? I have a second. We are adjourned. I'll take this to the office.